How to clean up an oil spill lab. Our problem is, how do we clean up an oil spill on a smaller scale than cleaning up an oil spill in the ocean? So we have many options to clean up an oil spill, and here's just a few of the options that you've learned from your lab. Our very first option is going to be about a sorbent. Sorbents can be a sponge, cotton balls. You would take your sorbent and you would set it in your water and oil, and then you would be able to squeeze out any excess oil into your smaller container. The next thing we have is a skimmer. You can use a slotted spoon and you can skim the oil off the top of the water, and then if a slotted spoon isn't enough, you can use a coffee filter over top of your slotted spoon. Just slide it in, and again you would skim it over the top of your water and try and grab the oil off the top of the water. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about is a vacuum. A vacuum is a syringe. This is 5 milliliters. And you would suck up the oil on the top of the water and then squeeze it into your excess container. My choice today, we're going to use a sorbent. So what's our hypothesis? Our hypothesis is if we place a sorbent, such as a sponge or cotton ball, on an oil spill, then the sorbent will soak up the oil. Again, our hypothesis, if we place a sorbent, such as a sponge or cotton ball, on an oil spill, then the sorbent will soak up the oil. We need to talk about materials. First, you'll need a 64-ounce or 8-cup container. Second, you'll need a 24-ounce or 3-cup container. You'll need a 2-cup measuring device, and you'll need to fill it with 2 cups of water. You'll also need a tablespoon. We need to use that to measure our salt, which you'll need 1 tablespoon of salt. And you'll also need it to measure our vegetable oil. And you'll need 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. Never use motor oil. And we'll also use 8 large or jumbo cotton balls. And then we'll also add a spoon and a plate to put our cotton balls on after we've soaked up our oil, and the spoon for measuring or stirring up our water and salt. So let's talk about our procedures. The first thing you want to do, step 1, would be to pour your 2 cups of water into your larger container. The next thing you want to do is you want to simulate an ocean. So we're going to pour 1 tablespoon of salt into our large container with the 2 cups of water. It's really important that you stir up your salt and make sure that it is blended in very well and dissolves in the water. Once you get that stirred up and your salt is pretty dissolved, we're going to add our 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. And again, never use motor oil when doing an assignment like this. So we'll add 1 tablespoon of oil and then 2 tablespoons of oil. After you get the oil in your water, what we're going to need to try now is to absorb that oil from the water and put it into our smaller container. This process can take a while depending on which method you choose. We're going to take 1 cotton ball and we'll slowly start this process. And it will try and suck up as much oil as possible in our cotton ball when we have just about as much oil as we can soak up in the cotton ball, we'll take it and we'll squeeze it into our smaller container. And then we can place the used cotton ball on our plate. We're going to do this about 8 times. And you have to be aware that not only are we sucking up oil, but we will get a little bit of water in our cotton ball as well. It's almost impossible to not get a little bit of a mixture. So it will take a little bit of time. And again, we'll squeeze our cotton ball and then go for our next cotton ball. And the oil will start to separate and will move around a little bit. So you'll have to kind of guide your hand over the different spots where the oil's moving. Imagine how that would be if you were in a real body of water out in the ocean, a river, a stream where you have movement of water. You have to try and catch the oil. This is stagnant. This isn't moving. This is staying right where we want it to. It makes this process really easy. And even at that, it's hard to get all the oil out of the container. So imagine trying to do this in a large scale and how long it would take to clean up. Okay, and we're slowly getting our oil and water there. And again, this would take a long time if you're doing it all by yourself in this lab, or a very long time if you're talking about open water and millions of gallons being pushed into that water. To put this in perspective, I want you to think of the Deepwater Horizon BP oil spill. It started on April 20th, 2010 and lasted till July 15th, 2010. And it dumped between 90 and 180 million gallons of oil in the Gulf of Mexico. Oil is moved by currents and winds. Luckily, we don't have that problem in our lab today, but they have to use specialized computer models to predict the movement of the spilled oil on the water surface. They're going to predict where the oil is most likely to go and how soon it may arrive there. They also use satellites and helicopters to predict this. All right, great. Now that we've finished our data, we need to do our data collection and analysis. And our data collection and analysis is that we collected a 1/3 cup oil water mixture. Now what I need you to do is go back to your lab report and you'll fill in all the different parts of the lab report and also answer the questions. Do you think this method of oil spill cleanup is effective? Why or why not? And how do you think our oil spill lab would work on a larger scale in the ocean? Okay, thanks. Bye.